Hello and welcome to Extra Time with me, Gary James, and guests, broadcaster, sports stadium announcer, and member of the Extra Time team, Paul Burrell, PR guru and sports journalist Lisa Smith.
Hi, Gary.
And he started his football career at Birmingham City. He's since played for Sunderland, for Millwall, West Bromwich Albion, Preston North End, Cheltenham Town, and he was an under-19 and I believe an under-20 England international as well. And now wears the number 4 shirt for Northampton Town. It is, if you haven't already guessed, Darren Carter. Welcome. Thank you. So let's find out a little more about the man behind the microphone first. Have you ever wondered who's the guy that introduces the teams onto the pitch, announces the substitutions, and makes a hell of a lot of noise when the home team scores? Well, he looks a bit like this. And here he is. He's let him out of the studio, onto the pitch. Paul, welcome.
Great to be here, Gary. Nice to see you.
First of all, a little bit about this picture.
Well, that picture was 4 years ago, just a couple of days ago, Blues against Arsenal at Wembley, Carling Cup final. There's me working. Charlie Nicholas has just had a shot there, so I was working with Charlie.
Yeah.
All my family and friends, all blue noses behind me, probably including Darren Carter, I would have thought, giving me loads, and if only they knew.
Yeah. Well, we'll stay on that point, then we'll find out a little bit more about how it all started in a sec. So you're the stadium announcer. Let's say that's at Wembley. Normally, you're tucked away in a box somewhere.
Well, you are at Arsenal, yeah, and like you are at Villa as well. I know
Yeah.
Dave Poulton rather well. He's been there about 32 years now, Dave. They just can't get rid of him. Simple as that. But at Wembley now, it's great because you do it just behind the substitutes.
Right.
And you're right amongst it. You don't miss any substitutions. You know what's going on. But at Arsenal, we're up in the gods. But these days, we work with a TV company that count you in all the time. You've got to have that discipline. And in the old days, when I started there in '91, it was a satchel full of 45s and a sandwich and
That was it.
Get on with it.
Yeah, because of course you mentioned Arsenal. You have since '91. You've been the regular
Yeah.
stadium announcer down at.
It started off as a six-match trial, and now
How many? 14 years is it? My
20,
maths has gone.
24.
24. I'm saying my maths is rubbish. 24 years. We'll come back to Wembley and Walsall in a minute. But how did it all start? Because I know you're a broadcaster, you're a radio DJ. When did it all start for you?
Well, I was working at Chiltern Radio on the breakfast show in those days.
Yeah.
But I was also working. Viewers will know the Night Out Theatre Restaurant, Birmingham.
Yeah.
But the equivalent down in Hertfordshire and Bedfordshire was Caesar's Palace in Luton, where lots of former Arsenal players used to come all the time. Charlie George, Frank McClintock, and I got on very well with Pat Rice, and we used to have a few drinks, and it was Pat and another gentleman. Music lovers from the '60s will know the name Clem Catini, great drummer, but also the founder member of the Tornadoes, and him and his wife. In those days, you didn't get Dutch and Danish players coming through. It was Scots or Irish. And because they were coming to the big city, they didn't want to put them in hotels. So they put them in what they call pro digs. Like families would take on the youngsters, keep them on the straight and narrow. And that's the way it was. And long story short, that's what they did. And Pat Rice got me an interview. And it was the most frightening day of my life. Because you're in the Arsenal boardroom with a gentleman called...
You've got his name. It'll come back to you.
Ken Fryer. Ken Fryer, been there since 1951. And it was just like being on the set of Arthur when Dudley Moore was meeting the father-in-law for the first time. And he started asking me questions about Arsenal, testing out my football knowledge. And I thought, here we go. And he said, what do you know about Arsenal? I said, I know you've had 3 great teams. I mean, it's 1991. He said, and straight away he jumped on me, Gary. He said, what are they? I said, well, the Herbert Chapman era from the 30s, the 71 double winning side, and this side you've got now. And then straight away he said, and what's your favourite memory about Arsenal? I said, well, that's easy. When I was 10 years old, we beat you 2-1 at St Andrews. Barry Bridges got both goals. And he said, I was there. I said, so was I. I was 10. And do you know something? I think that got me the gig, to be honest with you. Yeah. But they've been brilliant to me over the years. I mean brilliant.
And you've also the stadium announcer at Millennium.
That was in between Wembley being remodernised, obviously, and what a stadium that is. I mean, you'll speak to Darren in a little while, and what a memory for him.
Yeah. Of course, we'll talk about that memory, that goal a little bit later on in the show. But you're of all the games that you've seen, that you've been at the stadiums and been announcing on, what's the best moment for you?
The most poignant moments, I think, was the closing down of Highbury, the very last game. Henri got a hat-trick that day against Wigan Athletic. And Tom Watt, broadcaster, and myself, we were alternating between interviewing different Arsenal legends, and it really was a very special day. The Champions League final 2006, although the result went against Arsenal, that was just a major thrill. But for me, the best ever was 2012, nothing to do with Arsenal. I was doing all the men's and ladies football Olympic Games tournaments. And that was great. And what a summer that was for me, because I just come back from Ukraine doing the England Games in Euro 2012.
So some good memories for you.
Fabulous memories.
And it goes on. And I know we've had chats and we've known each other for a long time, and it always makes me smile that Paul's obviously a blue nose. Worked at Arsenal for those years. We worked at the Claret and Blue Club together, at Villa together on the radio.
Luton Town, Watford.
And I think, how do you remember where you are and what you're saying?
But do you know, one of the most satisfying gigs is Chasetown Football Club, because when I'm not at Arsenal, I'll do Chasetown. And Darren will agree with this, the non-league is special, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, Solihull Moors would be your local one, obviously, but there's an honesty about it. You don't get the rolling around like they've been shot and all that sort of thing. They don't harangue the referee as much, they still do, but it's refreshing, it's nice.
Darren, did you ever play non-league before you turned pro, or was it?
I didn't know. I went straight from school into the Blues Academy, and from there, just worked my way up. So I didn't get to play non-league. I do watch a lot of it. I say I've been down to Solihull Moors this season a lot. Got a few friends playing there, so I've got a few friends playing around the country actually non-league. So it's I'm always keeping up to date, and it's like you say, it is refreshing at times to go to the games and see how honest they are.
And back to Chasetown, Paul. I mean, what sort of crowds do the guys? That's obviously another local club like Walsall.
Yeah.
Okay, Walsall and Lee, but Chasetown.
Well, you probably remember they've had two fantastic cup runs. I mean, in 2005 they were on Match of the Day, live against Oldham. That was brilliant. That was my first ever game, and there's a story there. But also, they played against Cardiff City in the third round in 2008. Cardiff went on to the final, and it was Aaron Ramsey, the Welsh international skipper now. That was his very first senior game as a 17-year-old, and he scored with his head. And I don't think he's ever done that for Arsenal since, But the story about that was John Donnelly was the chairman of Chasetown at the time. He was a friend of mine, and he phoned me up. He said, "We've got a big game on Saturday." I said, "Well, I know, John. The whole world knows." He said, "Will you come and do the announcing?" And I said, "No." And he said, "What do you mean, no?" I said, "Well, it wouldn't be fair on your announcer. This is the game. This is his big game." He said, "We haven't got an announcer."
They don't
And
normally have one.
No, and while we're at it, can you bring a sound system as well? That's where Chasetown were, and
Fantastic.
9 years ago, still there, loving it. Yeah.
And the big gigs coming up, apart from the Midlands, is Walsall, 22nd of March.
That's just unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, I didn't see the show with Dean and Martin the other night, but he must be so excited.
Yeah. I mean, they are and apprehensive and they're going there to win.
Do you know why I think they've got a chance to win?
Go on.
Because they're not playing at home.
They're better away,
That's what they're
aren't they?
doing. They're winning
they
the
are.
away game. They beat Yeovil the other night.
The other night, they did. Yeah. A good win after a little bit of lack of form. But will you be popping down to Wembley, do you think, to watch Walsall, or are you?
I don't know if I'll get a chance. It'd be nice to. Obviously, with our games at Northampton, I'll have to look at our schedule. But it's like Paul said. I think Walsall this year, again, every year since Dean Smith has been there. I trained with them a couple of years ago, so I've seen it firsthand. How good he is as a coach and as a manager, and it's great to see him at Wembley. It's going to be a great day for him.
Yeah, I think he will. And we were saying the other day, weren't we, that we really hope that they can bring that Johnson Paint Trophy back to not just to Walsall, which is brilliant, but to the Midlands.
Well, there's a lot of good people at that club, as Darren would know, like Jeff Bonser, fabulous person. Roy Wally put his whole lifetime there. And I'm lucky enough to have worked behind the scenes with a lot of those guys and the girls like Vicky and also Karen. It's a family club, and they deserve this day. They really do.
So, we're really, everybody's behind him. Well, we keep on saying, and I know on the show, and I apologise, but it's a big thing for Walsall. We're going to talk about it up until the 21st.
And after, hopefully.
Yeah. And keep on at it. So, I'm sorry, if you know, if we keep on about it too much, but it has to be done because it might never happen again, and all that. So what's next for you, mate? Are you still on the radio? You
Still doing little bits of radio, a little bit of BBC Oxford recently, and just you know, it's like you become a hired hand. It's like all those clubs that you mentioned about Darren. I mean, I didn't know 2 of those.
I didn't know 2 of those, and I've known Darren for years.
Yeah.
Obviously, do your research. Do your research.
Been around.
Oh, great. Okay, well, that's it for the first half of Extra Time. Flies by, doesn't it? We're off to hear what the manager thinks, because we thought we were pretty good. We'll tell you what we'll see in the second half. So, welcome back. The manager thought the first half was actually brilliant, guys. So, no substitutions. Our team is Darren Carter, Lisa Smith and Paul Burrell. Okay, welcome back. Right, Darren from Solihull. First club.
Posh bloke.
Posh bloke, yeah. Posh bloke, Solihull.
That's what people say.
Yeah. First club, the Blues. I think you came to be noticed at 18, I think, and you may have been there at the academy.
Yeah.
But just taking it back, when you were at school, first of all, you were always going to be a player. And secondly, did you play for the school team? Did you play for any sort of other non-league type teams when you were at school, or was it straight into the academy and played for the Blues?
No, I had my first Sunday league side was Arden Forest, which were based in Solihull.
Yeah.
And I played for them pretty much up until I was 14 when I signed schoolboard forms with Blues.
Yeah.
I played for my district against Solihull. I had a couple of games for the county as well. So on my school side, so pretty much football was my life, and that's what dominated it. So my dad drove miles around the country taking me everywhere. So, but yeah, like I say, it was my life. I lived and breathed it. Yeah.
And the day you signed professional forms, can you remember that as vividly now as when it happened?
Well, yeah, I was very fortunate at the time. Brian Eastick was the academy manager, but he was also with Bob Latchford, which obviously was a Blues legend.
Yeah.
And my dad would tell me numerous stories about Bob, and he was a great guy as well, fantastic man.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was in good hands. So I remember going to the ground and signing, and I've got the pictures and everything at home. So treasured possessions.
Yeah. So at Blues, and of course, must be your favourite goal in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That penalty that took the Blues into the Premierships. And do you remember that day? Do you remember that day as well?
I was covering it as a reporter and as a Villa fan, so it's kind of wanted Darren to get it, but it's kind of.
No, don't tell fibs.
In fact, my daughter was with me and she fell asleep, and I didn't wake her up because I thought you don't want to, you don't really want to.
In fact, I should have been doing that game, but Arsenal had won the cup and they were doing the parade thing at Islington Town Hall, and I had to be there. Yeah. So we were watching it in a pub in Watford. And as Daz scored that goal, I've jumped straight to the bar, bottle of champagne. We don't do champagne. Gone to the outdoor, brought 2 bottles of champagne, and there's me and my mate, who was an Everton fan, we're the only 2 that wanted Blues to win in that whole of that southern pub. So we drank the champagne to ourselves. Well done, Daz.
You still remember, though, aren't you, everywhere we go?
Oh, God.
It is amazing, like you say, the different stories that I hear, like Paul's and people who were at the game, people who weren't at the game. They'll come up to me and tell me how they reacted and everything and the day they had. So it is fantastic, like I say, 13 years on, and people, it's still vivid in everyone's mind. Which is
people
great.
on holiday in Spain will be watching it in bars and,
Yeah.
But what was it like, Darren, as you ran up? You're an 18-year-old. Was that a bonus because you're fearless anyway? You just wanted to hit it. Was that what you were thinking?
Well, pretty much, yeah. The build up to the playoffs, Steve Bruce had us practicing penalties, doing the whole walk from the halfway line, and so my dad took plenty, and my dad hadn't missed one really in training. I was always confident taking penalties, and we got to the day, and Mark Bowen, who was the assistant that day, was going round basically asking who wanted to take one, and he said to me 4 or 5. And I said, well, who's it between? It was me and Brian Hughes at the time, and I knew Hughesy was a keen 5th penalty taker. He loved taking the 5th penalty. So he came back to me and said, you're number 4. So obviously it rolled round that Norwich had missed 2, and he came to me. And I always remember I don't know who took the Norwich penalty just before me, But I was actually hoping he scored, because then that would mean I'd take the fourth.
Yeah.
That's how confident I was, but he put me in that situation now. I don't know if I'll be that cool.
Oh, really?
Talking of penalties, can we talk about penalties at this point?
Of course we can talk about penalties.
Obviously, you also played for West Brom, and the Villa had a penalty late on last night. Did you see anything of that game?
I haven't seen any highlights yet. I've heard a lot, obviously through social media, and a couple of my friends who are Villa fans and West Brom, so I've heard both sides of the story, but very cool in the 94th minute.
Yeah, and talking about that, because Villa won, and the first win for Tim the other night. Obviously, we've got the repeat coming up on Saturday, which we'll come to in a minute. But what was it like, Daz, because you went and played for the Baggies, didn't you? And your first game was against Blues.
Yep.
What is it like? Because I can't imagine this. I think
know.
you've got that. You've there's all your buddies. You've played for the Blues. It's your first club. You've been around a few other clubs because you've been transferred out or loaned out. And there's your game, your debut at the Baggies. What's it like? How do you cope with that?
It is surreal. That game was surreal for me, more because my whole life up until I was 21 when I went to West Brom, and my whole life had been Blues. If I wasn't playing myself, obviously I was playing for Blues, the academy, but I'd had a season ticket from when I was younger. Everything, my whole football life was Birmingham. So then to go to that, and sort of, it was surreal because I'd made my debut for Blues against West Brom at the Hawthorn, so it was quite, surreal that then I was there, and the day just flies by, and you look and you see all the blue noses in the away end, and you just think, oh, it's surreal that I'm actually against these guys now. So it is, and it's part and parcel of football.
I'd like to know what your mum and dad did that day, because I mean they were Blues nuts, weren't they? Followed you every day.
My dad, to be fair to him, he's everywhere I've been. He's a Blue nose at heart. He brought me up as a Blues fan, and Blues is always going to be his number one. But on a day like that, I think he is a little bit. He's sort of 50. He's like, my son comes first, I suppose. So.
How do you deal with all your mates asking for tickets on a game like that as well?
I think any footballer will tell you tickets can be the bane of your life sometimes, and especially for big games. You get the odd person you haven't spoke to for a while. Can you get me 2 tickets and that? And
best mate.
So it can be a little bit.
That's right about the Warsaw final coming up when Dean was on the other night.
Yeah.
He was saying it's about 165 or something tickets from family and friends. He hasn't got that. Where they all come from.
Exactly,
but how can you remember? How did the Blues fans welcome you onto the pitch on that game, or?
They were great. They always have been. I think with Blues, they know that it was, it's in my heart, and that's, I'm a Blues fan at heart. I always will be.
Yeah, they'll always love Darren for that one.
Like you say, football is football. You are going to move about, that. But like I say, you're always going to have your team that's in your heart.
And talking about moving about, what's the question I've always wanted to ask a player like yourself is when you transferred, like from the Midlands club up to Sunderland, I think you were you loaned out to Sunderland. You were loaned out to Sunderland.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the feeling like in the dressing room? What do you feel like? You think, well, I'm from Solihull, I'm a Midlands lad, I've played for the local clubs, and now I've got to go up to the North East.
Yeah.
Did you really want to go? Did you go? Obviously, you don't get any choice, but
yeah, I mean, it is daunting, especially for me as well. Like you said, I'd only been in the Midlands, and it was my first time away from home. So it is a little bit daunting. You're a little bit nervous and apprehensive, but I loved it. It was absolutely unbelievable.
They're great fans as well, aren't
it is
they?
a great
atmosphere
there.
Well, they're as passionate up there as we are down here in the Midlands, aren't we?
Yeah.
And I think North East Midlands probably the most passionate areas for football for their local teams than anywhere else in the country.
Well, you look at Newcastle Villa last Saturday, 51,000 were there. And Newcastle are just abandoned in mid-table. It's a religion for them, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It is
I mean, it's obviously a good buzz if you're playing in front of that sort of crowd.
Yeah.
Versus at the moment, from our local clubs, it's like 15, 20,000.
Yeah.
Do you recognise that when you're on the pitch? Can you hear the atmosphere? I feel the atmosphere. I don't hear it. Feel the atmosphere.
You can do, 100%. Like I said, I've been lucky enough to play at St James's Park, and when it's been full, and Manchester United, Liverpool, and it's just a little bit more special, the atmosphere. You do feel it as a player, but take nothing away from being at the Hawthorns or at St Andrews when it's packed and it's bouncing. It's just as nice, and you do feel it just as much.
What is your favourite away ground, Daz?
people have asked me that, and I had a few. It was great playing at Old Trafford. I've had, you know, a lot of opportunities to play there. But I loved Anfield. I don't know what it was. It was just played there a couple of times, and it's just a special feel. Yeah,
yeah, it's like an old a traditional football ground.
Yeah. So, but I did like Highbury. I made my Premier League debut for Blues at Highbury, and I always loved. I played there for West Brom, so it was, always loved Highbury.
That was it. Highbury's the same, wasn't it, as Anfield? You could feel like you just reach out and you touch the players. Exactly.
The closest thing in football at the moment, especially in London, to Highbury is Fulham, really.
Yeah.
Craven Cottage is a bit like that. Yeah.
But the Northampton town at the moment, Daz. So you see your future there, or you think you might move somewhere else around the Midlands, or?
No, I mean I've loved my time there. We had a sort of a wretched season last year, which finished in a little bit of glory. We survived, and this year now we won the other night against Portsmouth, put us 3 points off the playoffs. So. You never know. Fingers crossed.
You'll be doing that one as well.
At Wembley. So, but no, it's a great club, and we're on a real roll at the moment. So it'd be nice for us to finish the season off special.
Yeah. Who's the manager there now?
Chris Wilder.
Oh, right.
So he came from Oxford, January last year. So he came in and turned us round at that time, and as I say,
he's a gentleman, isn't he?
Sorry?
Chris is a gentleman.
He won Manager of the Month, was it last month? And he's up for it again this month, so I think it shows how well we're doing.
Well, folks, time's beaten us again. It's been great chatting. Daz, you'll have to come back on again. Yeah, Paul as well, you're part of the team now. Lisa, thank you. Well, our thanks, as I say, to Lisa Smith, to Paul Burrell, and of course, Darren Carter. And if we're not talking about your sport, then please drop us a line. Extra time at bigcentre.tv. That's full time on Extra Time. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.